Hey everyone, it's Alex, and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week, the weekly series where I showcase the top 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. And if you'd like to support my content, consider hitting that like button. It's free, and it's legitimately all that YouTube cares about. It helps tremendously. With that being said, let's get started with the top 10 decks. Now, we're going to do things a little differently this week. We're going to do a little bit of an intro here. Now, the first thing is that the meta as of the OTA is admittedly not great. The reason why I say this is because it is predominantly Agamotto at the top and variations of Agamotto. We're seeing some experimentation still. The Thanos decks are underperforming, unfortunately, so they don't crack the top 10. A lot of the cooks just do not crack the top 10 yet, so let's hope that next week maybe a couple of new things kind of shape up from the OTA. However, what the OTA did was definitely bring down the ceiling on some of the decks that were, well, kind of competing with the Agamotto style decks. So now it's basically Agamotto at the top. So what I've done this week, and we actually have a very low sample size. There's just fewer games being played. So untapped based statistics post infinite, like we had a very narrow sample size. And so what I've done here is the top 5 decks are untapped based statistics, infinite only, since the OTA, okay? Straight up statistically win rate down. The other 5 decks, the first 5 we're going to talk about, 10 through 6, they're going to be using statistics over the last 30 days, and they're going to be decks that are focused around cards that were not impacted by the OTA, but more importantly, do not necessarily feature Agamotto for those that did not buy the Season Pass or just don't want to play the Season Pass card. So, a little bit of a different approach. We're trying to use as much statistics as we can to give you the best decks as we can. So, I just want to give you that kind of preamble so you guys know what we're dealing with here. And as of Starbrand is woefully underperforming. It's actually kind of surprising. The Sauron it's just not good enough. That whole archetype's not good enough. And what's interesting about it is that the best shell was the Surtur base shell, which got a massive nerf. Not necessarily a massive nerf, but the deck feels worse because now it no longer allows you to play Cull Obsidian into the Sam Wilson shield, resulting in that specific deck with Starbrand Surtur now no longer being as easy to play. And that deck, you might say, oh, well, we'll just take Cull Obsidian out and still run the Sam Wilson. But like Sam Wilson now doesn't serve the same purpose. It can still play with Atuma. But the problem is now like there's not an easy replacement for the Cull Obsidian. It's a little unfortunate. Starbrand got hit by the OT, ironically. So right now, Starbrand's in a tough spot. That's just my kind of pre-review about that. But with regards to what you can be playing right now, Toxic. Toxic had a 57% win rate to 0.32 cube rate. This has been a very good deck, and it has a couple of moving pieces. Obviously, you have the Sam Wilson shield moving, you have the Rocket and Groot moving, and as a result, you're able to get some value out of the Morales. You're leaning into the Scorpion, the debuffs with the Cassandra Nova, etc., to kind of activate that free Abomination. You obviously have the Man-Thing, and Ajax itself is a absolutely fantastic closer. This is a pretty interesting deck. It does have a couple expensive pieces in it. However, I do feel like if you're looking to play something that is relatively straightforward and will do a pretty good job in the meta, you could very well play this. The only challenge with this is that, obviously with the Cassandra Nova, you don't steal power from the Agamotto cards. Scorpion doesn't impact the Agamotto cards. So there's some trickery to that. However, still a good deck if you wish to kind of go with it. Oh, the Mirrors of Icon as well. Could potentially reset negative power being applied. That's something worth considering too with Toxic and the Abomination play in particular. At a 58% win rate to 0.34 cube rate, once again, last 30 days statistics, we do have Clog. Now, this particular version of Clog I found particularly interesting. Not only does it have the combination of the Titania into the Green Goblin, which I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite things to do in Snap. You also have the Daredevil play, which is it's very fascinating. I do like it. It's not running a Hobgoblin, despite the fact it has Daredevil. So if you are missing something from this deck, like if you don't have like a Red Hulk. Now, Red Hulk is particularly good in this deck because they're often floating energy with the inability to play. You could consider putting a Hobgoblin there for that Daredevil. But Daredevil also, the Acid Arrow is often used in conjunction with Daredevil. You can also, Viper over the hood effectively if you're playing that kind of later on. You can also Misery things over as well. So, not over. You would Misery the hood to clear up the space, for instance, and you would Viper kick a rock from debris. Regardless, this is a very good deck, and it has kind of fallen off to the wayside a little bit. But overall, it's one that you can consider playing right now if it's something you want to do. The only challenge with this deck is, once again, the Mirror of Icon, which would take those rocks and stuff and change them into a greater power thing. Agamotto is so popular, you need to be very cognizant of the risks that you kind of face against Agamotto in particular with Claw, because you send all these things over and then they flip the board on you, right? This Agamotto might be legit insane. Wolves by Night. This is a 59% win rate and a 0.38 cube rate over the last 30 days, and it's a particularly interesting deck. It stood out to me that Scarlet Witch was in here, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not against it. You know, statistically, it's performing. Actually, it's like 300 games on it, too, which is kind of interesting. But has Scarlet Witch in here. You do have some tech in the form of Cassandra Nova, which also helps you to kind of land that Gladiator play. But, of course, you have the Fenris, you've got the Gladiator, you've got the Werewolf by Night. I love the idea of Negasonic here as well, because if you gain initiative with these cards, which is entirely possible, because like it does have a pretty good curve. Werewolf by Night's been one of those cards that's been largely forgotten about, and you do have a lot of on reveals here that could potentially be helpful. Obviously, you have arrows that provide on reveal effects, which are pretty interesting. You also have the Shang-Chi, and so you have like these variable opportunities to like bounce some power around, and we haven't seen much Werewolf by Night, honestly. However, you do have Fenris with the Negasonic, and so you can get some value on turn 6 if you're able to. With that extra energy, you could, for instance, play Gladiator on turn 6 in conjunction with the Negasonic, and you're potentially destroying two things and bringing back the largest of them with Fenris. So it is an interesting deck, and we haven't seen much Werewolf by Night, so I wanted to include it here. Going to number 7. It's good old Scream. Now, Scream was impacted negatively by the Arrow nerf, but that was a little bit ago here. The change to Spider-Man has improved its kind of power potential. The thing about this deck is that it's just good. It's running a 60% win rate at 0.45 cube rate. And it's one of those ones where, like, it traditionally had a hard time on turn 2, where it was like, okay, you draw Scream or you lose. And now it's like, okay, I draw Scream, or I draw Captain America, or I draw Kraven. And all three of them are like, okay, I'm generating power every turn, basically, right? With Kraven, you've got the Polaris, you got everything else you're going to do. With the Scream, you know exactly what you're doing. And with Captain America, you know exactly what you're doing. It has a very straightforward game plan from turn 2 onwards. And very rarely do you not actually pull one of those three. And so your game plan feels like it's much more consistent. This particular version of the deck is running Legion as a more of a surprise play, which I do appreciate. If you don't have Legion, you could consider something like a Magneto, but you probably have Legion, right? But it's interesting to see Legion in the change instead of Magneto here. Magneto obviously is a traditional card to add here, but Legion, there's nothing that surprises players more. Like A-Cube games are won on Legion plays, and so I do really appreciate what Legion can do in this game. That's number 7. Number 6, and this is the last of the 30-day kind of untapped-based statistics decks. We have Ongoing Doom. Now, Doom was nerfed. The Doom bots specifically were nerfed in power. Doom itself was changed as well. So the Doom 2099 has hit 2 separate nerfs, but it was the most powerful 4-drop in the game. The reason why I'm including this one here is because the stats are outright awesome. 62% win rate, 0.45 cube rate. Is that it's the ongoing shell that really works here, right? Not only are you getting that Doom bot +1 effect across the board, but you're also leaning into the fact that the Doom bots are ongoing, and that Spectrum is going to buff them as well. You have the Doom counterplay to that. I like the idea of running Mojo too. Mojo, in my testing with this deck, Mojo was actually pretty solid with the Doom 2099, because you're often filling locations pretty effectively, and Doom and regular Doctor Doom can help to facilitate the Mojo as well. Mojo's like one of the least cards I play in Snap. I don't even have a variant for him. Like I could not care less about Mojo. So for me to talk about Mojo in any form of positive light is a step in the right direction. But anyways, I wanted to showcase something here. Now, the one card that might need to get changed is the Super Scroll, in particular because Super Scroll, it was more effective when you had lots of mirror matches. And so Super Scroll starts to lose its effectiveness when you're not facing a lot of ongoing, right? Now, one of the advantages of Super Scroll is if they're playing something like a Sam Wilson, you can move your own shield even if you don't have your Sam Wilson. But again, Super Scroll coming out on turn 4, it's a little late for that. You do still see some negative gore. It is actually kind of an emerging shell in the meta, especially if you're still ranking up through Infinite there. So Super Scroll does have its value, but it would be the one that I would change if I was going to change anything in this deck. And that's going to take us to the statistical top 5 this week in and of itself. And look at that, it's Bullseye, which is hilarious because, well, obviously this is the Bullseye design that I came up with. But what I will say is that, like, I actually think that I'm going to be revisiting this design for Firehair. And so look out for that. I think Firehair is going to be a pretty cool card. And I have 2 shells that I'm working on. But, like, I am going to be trying Fire Bullseye, because I think it's going to be awesome. So just, if you want to kind of practice for that, you can play this shell and kind of get a hang of it. Because I do think that the Arnim Zola Bullseye combination with Firehair and Bullseye is going to be nuts. absolutely insane. And so if you want to get some early practice in at a 56% win rate, 0.31 cube rate, this deck still absolutely slaps. Will get you to infinite and beyond. Still solid. I love it. Bullseye, man, I love the card. I love Bullseye. What can I say? And it's good to see that like it outperformed what like was the expectations. You know what I mean? And it has been consistently a performer over the last month or two. So I don't know. I've been very happy with this. This has been perhaps my most successful cook of my Marvel Snap career. So I'm glad that it's still making top 10 decks out there, even though it's my own list. And so you could question the validity of me being so excited to add it to its own list, but I guess whatever. I swear I'm being honest. It wasn't on last week's list, right? So it's coming back, baby. It's coming back. Now we get to the Agamotto Cringe. Now this is one of the variations of Agamotto, and again, there's a ton of different variations, but this one was enough that it was worth talking about individually. And this is the E-Tree version of Agamotto. The Agamotto E-Tree decks are interesting because obviously you can be pulling those Agamotto cards. And E-Tree is worth playing on turn 1 and activating on turn 2 because you just want to get like the Agamotto card into your hand because Winds of Watoomb is insane and is begging for a nerf. You have the Temporal Manipulation, which is great because it obviously thins your deck and pulls Agamotto into your hand as a 13. E-Tree is fantastic here. Great card. And then you have the series of 2-drops of like, oh, look, I got Kate Bishop, Iron Patriot, Captain America, great 2-drops, right? You got the Quinjet as well, which is great for the Agamotto cards. But ultimately, it's just a good shell, like where you can get some value from Shangers and Galactic Gwenpool. You could even run a Zabu here if you wanted to, right? Like I could see the Quinjet being changed with Zabu, and I mean you just might see that in some of the top shells. And then ultimately you might get a pretty interesting shell that'll work fundamentally for you. But yeah, I just want to showcase the E-Tree one here. I thought it was pretty good. Number 4. As we go to number 3 here, and we're going to be going to Wiccan. And this is a tech-centric version of Wiccan. You'll notice that, by the way, I did roll for my Wiccan. This is by far one of my favorite variants in the game. Oh man, absolutely awesome. I don't know why I'm talking about the variant right now, but I just love it. Look at this. Look at Wiccan and Speed, the two brothers. Look at these variants. They're absolutely both beautiful. Aren't they just beautiful variants? Okay, let's talk about the deck. Tech Wiccan, 58% win rate, 0.46 cube rate, a very tech-centric version of Wiccan. It has the Enchantress in there. And the Enchantress has a lot of value, but most importantly, you have the Gorgon, you have the Cassandra Nova, you got the Shang-Chi, while you're also developing kind of the Galacta, generating extra power here and there. You have the Rocket and Groot combination with the Iron Patriot. This deck just does a lot of things right. And it puts out a lot of power, and then it sticks to putting down power and allowing Speed to even generate very passive but consistent power. It's just a great deck. And Gorgon is important right now because Agamotto is all over the place. We're not even done talking about Agamotto yet. Agamotto's all over the place. As a result, you're going to want some counterplay to that. Gorgon provides that counterplay. Shang-Chi provides that counterplay. And so as a result, you got a 58% win rate Wiccan deck that focuses on the tech. Number 2, we're going to Disrupt Control. And once again, tech is the name of the game right now in Marvel Snap. And again, you got Gorgon here. You got the stud 2-drops. You got Iron Patriot, Sam Wilson, Captain America. You basically just take Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Iron Patriot, you just put them in any deck, and the deck's just better, and your 2s are just fine, right? Who needs Jeff the Baby Landshark when you have these two clowns? Mobius and Mobius. You got tons of, like, tech disruption here. You got the Sandman, Cap Marvel, Doctor Doom, Makari. It's all about cheating power down, putting wide swaths of power down, and then just kind of like getting the dub. That's what this deck's all about. Disrupting your opponent's hand. Oh, you want to play all the... Well, Gorgon's out there. Mobius and Mobius has a presence. Sandman has a presence. Like, how many cards do you think you're going to play when Sandman's out there, Gorgon's out there, etc., right? You really disrupt the Agamottos and everything's ability to play, and that's what this deck's all about. Disruption, control, beating the meta. It's doing it at 59% win rate. It's doing a good job. And that's going to take us to our number 1 deck of the week, and it's Agamotto Tech. And hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. That's all those things I forgot to say earlier in the video. But Agamotto Tech. Agamotto's all over the place, and this is currently the top version of it. And as I suggested, Zabu does a great job in these shells because you do have the Enchantress Galacta, the Gwenpool, the Shang-Chi. Lots of fantastic targets for the Zabu. And then at a 63% win rate, 0.51 cube rate, like, why would you play anything else other than this? Agamotto's absolutely cracked. it's demolishing game plans right now. It's demolishing Marvel Snap. You got Kate Bishop, Iron Patriot, Sam Wilson, like fantastic 2-drops across the board. You got the Disruption of Juggernaut. You got the Shang-Chi for everyone else's big chunky stuff. Copycat for just pure scouting and chaos. Right? Copycat, okay. I complained about Copycat's nerf, and I have since been playing it, and my gosh, I love Copycat again. I should never have doubted how good Copycat was post-nerf because it was all in my head. It was all in my head. Copycat's still great, but yeah, this is the #1 deck of the week. Statistically far and beyond everything else. Post-Infinite, 63% win rate, 0.51 cube rate. This is Post-Infinite stats since the OTA. It's stupid. Like, this is dumb statistically. Like, this is so high. Anything above 0.30 is considered a good deck. This is, like, almost double that. Like, it's almost there, right? It is an insane deck. Something has to happen. And so, does Agamotto get nerfed while it's still a season pass card? Or the second inner go the route of like, well, let's nerf everything in the Agamotto decks, right? But like, there is some variation here. But there is one consistent card that's the problem. Just might be Agamotto, man. It just might be Agamotto. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I sincerely appreciate every one of you. I got another video on the screen if you want to watch some more Marvel Snap content. Otherwise, we'll see you on that next one.